The air turned colder the moment I stepped into room 6. At first, it felt like a normal, run-down motel room. Dim lighting, faded curtains, and the scent of mildew hanging in the air like an old memory. But there was something off about it, something I couldn't place. I tossed my bag on the bed and turned toward the bathroom. The light inside flickered, buzzing weakly like it was tired of staying on. That's when I noticed the mirror. A long, jagged crack ran from the top corner to the center, like a bolt of lightning frozen in glass. The damage distorted the reflection, made my face look warped, hollow-eyed. I stared at myself, uneasy, and then I saw her. Just for a second. Behind me in the mirror stood a woman, tall, pale, hair dripping as if she'd just stepped out of a lake. Her eyes were dark holes, as if someone had scooped them out. But when I turned around, the room was empty. My heart pounded. I rushed back into the bedroom, stood in the middle of the room, and waited. Silence. Nothing. Maybe it was a trick of the light. A smudge. My imagination. But when I glanced back at the mirror, she was gone. I tried to sleep, but couldn't. Not because of the bed or the noise. There was none. That was the problem. The silence in that motel was too deep. It was like the building had been buried under soundless sand. At 2:03 a.m., something woke me. A faint tap. Then another. It was coming from the bathroom. I sat up slowly. The air in the room felt heavier now, like breathing through wet cloth. The bathroom light was still on, but dimmer, more yellow. The door creaked open on its own. I reached my phone. No service. Hello? I called, my voice barely a whisper. No response. But the mirror, it was rattling. At first, just a soft tremble, then harder, like something was banging from the inside. I stepped forward, despite every instinct screaming at me not to. She was there again, standing perfectly still in the reflection, even though the bathroom was empty. Her dress was soaked and clung to her thin frame. Her mouth was slightly open, no expression, no sound, just blankness. And then her hand moved, only in the mirror. I froze. She slowly lifted her arm and touched the inside of the glass, and a wet, dark handprint appeared on my side of the mirror. That's when I knew it wasn't just a ghost. The mirror was a gateway or a prison. I backed away and slammed the bathroom door shut, but it creaked open again instantly. I turned to run out of the room, but the hallway outside was pitch black. No light, just a solid wall of darkness, like ink poured into space. I slammed the door shut and locked it. The moment I did, the mirror let out a shriek. Not loud, not external, but right inside my head, like someone screaming through my skull. Then everything stopped. Silence returned. The room looked normal again, but I didn't dare look into the mirror. I slept with the light on. At sunrise, I felt stupid. Maybe it was sleep deprivation, stress, or a dream. But when I entered the bathroom to wash my face, I saw it clearly on the glass. A wet handprint. Faded now, but there, on my side of the mirror. I checked out, without saying a word to the old man at the counter. Room 6, he said as I passed. No one ever stays more than one night. I paused. What's in the mirror? He looked up slowly. His pupils were like tiny black dots in a sea of yellow. She lives in the glass. Trapped but watching. She likes the ones who stare too long. That's when I realized it wasn't my imagination. Something was in that mirror, and it had seen me. Later that week, I started noticing strange things in my apartment. Reflections that didn't match. A figure behind me in the kitchen window. The bathroom mirror fogging up with writing. Even when I hadn't used hot water. I see you. It read. The woman from Motel, she had followed me. Every mirror now felt alive. I started covering them all, even the screen on my phone, the black of the TV, because sometimes when I looked too long, I saw her eyes. Not white, not red, just black voids, endless, open, like she was waiting for me to come back. Or worse, waiting to come out. The days that followed were the worst of my life. At first, I told myself it was all a nightmare, a hallucination from the motel, maybe stress from the long drive, or too much coffee. But as the days passed, it became harder to ignore. The mirror, the wet handprints, the way the shadows seemed to follow me. It was all too real. I was unraveling. It started innocently enough. I noticed small things, objects slightly out of place, strange sounds in the middle of the night. But it wasn't until the whispers began that I started losing control. I couldn't sleep. Not really. I would fall into fitful, shallow sleep, only to wake up to the feeling of someone standing at the foot of my bed. I could hear their breath, slow, steady, as if they were waiting, watching. I'd sit up, heart pounding, and the room would be empty. But the feeling didn't leave. It was like someone was always just behind me, always just out of sight. The whispers started the following week. It wasn't much at first, just a faint rustling, like leaves brushing against my window. But they grew louder, clearer. At night, I would hear my name whispered, soft at first, then growing more urgent. Come back. Let me out. It was my own voice, a sickening distortion of it. It sounded like me, but it wasn't. It wasn't the first time I had heard that voice. It was the same voice I had heard in the mirror. I began to wonder if I was losing my mind. I mean, how could I explain any of it? No one would believe me. They'd think I was crazy, just another paranoid guy with a bad experience at a roadside motel. But the worst part? I couldn't stop looking into mirrors. I'd catch myself staring at reflections in windows, in glass, in the TV screen. It didn't matter. I felt drawn to them. It was like there was something behind me in the reflection, something that wasn't me. I even started hearing that voice during the day, in broad daylight. Whenever I was alone, it would whisper my name from across the room or from behind closed doors. Sometimes it would be at the back of my mind, like a nagging thought I couldn't shake. It wasn't just an echo. It felt like I was hearing myself talk from the inside out, like my reflection was speaking to me without moving its lips. And it started changing. The reflection wasn't the same anymore. It would sometimes smile, an unnatural grin, stretching wider than it should have, showing too many teeth. When I looked away, the smile would fade, but I knew it was there. I could feel it. It was like I was watching someone else wear my skin, making faces I didn't want to make. I had to stop looking. I had to break free. But I couldn't. I stayed in my apartment, barely leaving the house. The walls seemed to close in on me. The floorboards creaked at odd hours. Sometimes, the air would feel too still, too quiet, as though everything around me was holding its breath, waiting for me to crack. At one point, I began to question what was real. I would wake up and stare at the clock. Was it morning, or had I been awake all night? Was it the weekend, or had I missed work entirely? Time was slipping through my fingers. Every night, it felt like I was living the same endless loop, like I couldn't escape the night at the motel. The worst part was when the mirrors began to move on their own. At first, I thought it was just my mind playing tricks, a side effect of too much stress. But then I saw it, the mirror in my hallway. I saw it shift ever so slightly, its surface rippling like water. The reflection wasn't me anymore. I didn't see myself staring back. Instead, I saw the woman from the motel, standing still, her mouth slightly open, her eyes hollow. I froze. My own reflection smiled at me, a twisted version of my smile, but I couldn't move. I reached for my phone, trying to capture it, to prove to myself I wasn't imagining it. But when I looked at the screen, it was gone. Everything was normal. The reflection was mine again. I couldn't breathe. I had no idea what was real anymore. I didn't know if I was living in reality or if this was a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. The whispers grew louder and more frequent. I began hearing them at work, in public places. Come back. Let me out. You're mine now. I was slipping. The line between the world I knew and the one in the mirror was dissolving. Every time I looked, I saw the reflection moving of its own accord. It wasn't just a woman anymore. It was me, standing in the background, grinning, eyes wide with madness. Every time I blinked, the reflection grew more distorted. I hadn't realized it at first, but I had begun losing track of time altogether. I didn't know how many days had passed, how long I'd been living in this nightmare. My apartment felt like a prison. No matter where I went, I saw mirrors. I saw her. She was always there, watching, waiting. And that's when I heard the final straw that shattered everything. In the dead of night, while lying in bed, I heard her voice, right beside me. You shouldn't have left. Now you belong to me. I snapped. I grabbed the nearest object, a glass vase, and threw it at the nearest mirror. It shattered. But when I looked back, the pieces weren't on the floor. The mirror was whole again. Everything was still, too still. That's when I realized I wasn't in control anymore. I had crossed the line. I had stared too long, tried to break free, when I should have just let her have me. This psychological breakdown leads a protagonist to lose his grip on reality, slowly breaking down as the supernatural forces grow stronger. The first time I went back to the motel, I didn't even plan it. My car just drove me there. My hands gripped the steering wheel, but my mind wasn't in control. It was like my body had become a vessel, being pulled back to where it all started. I'd tried everything to forget, to shake off the nightmare. Therapy, medication. But every time I closed my eyes, I saw her, the woman from the mirror, the cracks in the glass. Her hollow eyes staring through me. I couldn't escape her. As I approached the motel, something felt wrong. The air was heavier, colder. The sky had that sickly yellow-green hue you see in old horror films, and the streetlights flickered. But there it was, the Devil's Motel, exactly as I remembered. The neon sign was buzzing again, as if it had been waiting for me. I parked, my breath catching in my throat. But I couldn't leave. Not now. Not after everything that had happened. There was something I had to do. Something I had to understand. The old man at the front desk was gone. But there was a new receptionist, a woman with eyes too wide and too vacant, sitting in the chair. She didn't move as I walked in. "Room 6, she whispered, as though it was an instruction, not a question. I wanted to ask her why, but I couldn't speak. I took the key, the same rusted brass one, as if it had always been mine. The hallway stretched on, but it was no longer the same. The walls pulsed, shifting in a sickening rhythm, like they were breathing. The air felt thicker now, like walking through syrup. The lights flickered, and the shadows seemed to stretch in unnatural directions. Room 6 wasn't where I had left it. The number was different. There was no door, just a wall, a gaping hole in the space where it should have been. I stepped through it. Inside, the room had changed. It was no longer the decayed, musty place I had stayed in. It was perfectly pristine, as if it had been frozen in time. The bed was perfectly made, the carpet immaculate. The only thing out of place was the mirror. It was now the center of the room, huge, framed in gold. It seemed to glow with an unnatural light, pulsing in time with my heartbeat. I walked closer, my reflection warping as I moved. The room began to change around me. I felt dizzy, as if the walls were bending, warping, shifting into something else. The air thickened with the smell of rot, of decay. Everything was wrong. The lights buzzed louder, and then I heard the whispers again. Not from the mirror, not from behind me, from the walls. They were saying my name. "Come back." The door slammed shut behind me. I spun around, trying to open it, but it was stuck, fused with the wall. I was trapped. In the mirror, the woman appeared again. Her face twisted, distorted, eyes empty, mouth open in a scream that didn't match the silence around me. And then she stepped forward. Her reflection didn't match mine anymore. She was out of the mirror, right beside me. I stumbled backward, heart racing. I turned to run, but the room wasn't there anymore. The floor disappeared beneath me, and I was falling. The walls stretched and twisted around me. I could hear the woman's laughter, hollow, echoing, all around. The motel was alive. It was feeding on me, on my fear, on my confusion. I couldn't tell if I was in the same place anymore. It was like a dream, but it wasn't. It was real. The Devil's Motel wasn't just haunted. It was a place between worlds, a threshold, a prison. It shifted with the minds of the lost. And now, I was one of them. The whispers didn't stop. They grew louder, stronger, as if the motel itself was closing in on me, suffocating me. Every reflection I saw now was wrong. I wasn't in control. I was stuck. And then I realized the woman had never left. She had always been there, hiding behind a mirror, waiting for me to come back. She was part of the motel, just like everything else. She was the soul of the place, a manifestation of its cursed nature. Every person who checked in was just a piece of its collection. The motel fed off us. I tried to leave, but the walls wouldn't let me. I tried screaming, but no sound came out. The woman stepped forward again. This time, she wasn't smiling. She was grinning, wide and terrifying. Her eyes, those black holes, pulled me in. "You checked in," she said, her voice a cold whisper in my ear. "And now you're mine." I turned, but there was no escape. The walls closed in. The motel itself swallowed me whole. I could feel my reflection pulling me back, sinking deeper into the endless void that the motel had become. The last thing I heard was her laughter, the echo of the lost, the endless souls trapped between dimensions, waiting for the next to join them. Epilogue. No one ever found me. I never left the Devil's Motel. The world outside moved on, but I was still there, trapped in that broken reality, with the woman watching me from the cracks in the mirrors. And the motel? It's still there, waiting for someone else. Someone like you.